Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of ancient Rome, you might imagine noble senators in brilliant white togas, their voices echoing through grand marble forums as they debate the fate of the world. You see sprawling villas with serene, sun-dappled courtyards, where philosophers contemplate the nature of virtue. But for the vast majority of people living under Roman rule, life was not a series of elegant statues and profound speeches. It was a noisy, chaotic, and often desperate scramble for survival in a city that simmered like a pot left too long on the fire. For most, the home was a cramped, dark room in a teetering tenement block that smelled of smoke, dampness, and the collected humanity of 100 other families. Honestly, given the lack of plumbing, privacy, and personal space, you probably wouldn't last a day. As our story begins tonight, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Drop a comment and let me know. It's always a pleasure to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Let the past sing you to sleep. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you are aware of is not light, but sound. It's a low, rhythmic scraping from the floor above you, the sound of a neighbor dragging a wooden stool across the packed earth floor. It's a familiar sound, the one that tells you morning is here, or at least, the version of morning that exists in the perpetual twilight of this building. Your eyes open to a darkness that is only slightly less absolute than the one you were just sleeping in. There are no windows in your small room, no cheerful shafts of dawn to greet you. There is only a single, high opening near the ceiling that vents into a central air shaft, a grimy tunnel that carries smells and sounds far better than it carries light. From it, you can already smell the smoke from someone's breakfast fire, a scent laced with the sharper, more acrid smell of burning charcoal. You are lying on a straw-stuffed mattress laid directly on the floor. The straw has been there for a long time, and it has compressed into a lumpy, unforgiving mat that seems to find every bone in your back. The wool blanket covering you is coarse and heavy, smelling faintly of lanolin, damp and sleep. You push it aside and sit up, the cool air of the room raising small bumps on your skin. You can feel the grit on the floor beneath your bare feet, a fine layer of dust and city grime that is impossible to ever fully sweep away. You live on the third floor of what a landlord might generously call an apartment building. To everyone else, it's just a block, a teetering structure of cheap timber frame construction and crumbling brick, packed with families living cheek by jowl. Historians still argue about just how high these buildings could get, with some accounts claiming they reached 6 or even 7 stories, defying both gravity and common sense. Yours, thankfully, is a more modest 4. The sounds of the building waking up are a symphony of close quarters living. Below you, a baby begins to cry, a thin, insistent wail that seems to pass right through the floorboards. From across the narrow, dark hallway, you hear the muffled sounds of an argument, two low, angry voices rising and falling in a familiar cadence. There is no real privacy here. Every cough, every argument, every moment of intimacy or despair is a semi-public event, shared with the dozen other families on your floor. You reach for the small clay cup on the floor beside you and take a sip of the water left over from yesterday. It's tepid and has a flat, slightly metallic taste from the jug it was stored in. There is no running water this high up. All the water for drinking, cooking, and the minimal washing you can manage has to be hauled up 3 flights of stairs from the public fountain down the street. It's a task that makes you think twice about every single drop you use. You stand and pull on your tunic, the only garment you own besides the one you reserve for special occasions. It's made of rough, undyed wool, patched at the elbow and frayed at the hem. It's functional, durable, and does little to protect you from the morning chill. As you dress, your stomach gives a low grumble, a reminder of last night's meager meal of bread and a few olives. The bread, like all bread from the local baker, was gritty. It's a common complaint, a quirk of the milling process where tiny particles of the stone grinding wheels flake off into the flour. You've grown so used to it that bread without that sandy texture would probably feel strange. There are no Yelp reviews for the local baker, no health department to inspect the millstones. You eat what you can get and you're grateful for it. Today is an important day. Today, you begin a process that is vital to your small family's finances, a task that is both an art and a foul necessity. You are going to make fish sauce, not the cheap, watered-down stuff sold to the masses, but a batch of the good, potent condiment that can fetch a decent price. A sauce that will be the flavor foundation of your meals for the next year. It's a project that requires a strong stomach, a tolerance for truly epic smells, and a journey into the very heart of the city's commerce. But first, you must get there. You must navigate the building itself, which is its own kind of challenge. You open your wooden door, which groans on its leather hinges, and step into the dim, narrow corridor. The air here is even thicker, heavy with the combined smells of too many people living in too little space. Smoke, unwashed bodies, stale cooking odors, and the faint, ever-present scent of chamber pots waiting to be emptied. You join the slow trickle of residents heading for the stairs. The stairwell is steep and treacherous, the wooden steps worn smooth and concave in the middle from generations of footfalls. There is no handrail, only the grimy plaster wall to steady yourself against. As you descend, you have to press yourself against the wall to let a woman pass, her arms laden with a heavy water jug, her face set in a mask of concentration. No one speaks. There's a silent understanding among the residents in the morning, a shared sense of tired resolve as everyone begins the daily struggle. The building is a living thing, groaning and settling around you, its wooden beams creaking as if in protest of the weight they bear. It's a testament to a strange kind of human resilience. This ability to carve out a life inside a structure that feels like it could collapse in the next strong wind. And yet it stands, as it has for decades, a vertical neighborhood humming with the quiet, determined energy of survival. You emerge from the oppressive darkness of the tenement's ground floor doorway and into the riotous morning of the city. The change is jarring, a sudden assault on your senses. The street is narrow, a canyon carved between the leaning facades of multi-story buildings that seem to blot out the sky. The air, while fresher than inside, is a complex and potent brew. You can taste the dust kicked up from the unpaved road, a fine, gritty powder that coats the back of your throat. This is mixed with the sharp smell of donkey dung, the savory aroma of bread from a nearby bakery, and the pungent, cloying sweetness of refuse piled in a corner, waiting for the collectors who may or may not come today. There is no organized garbage collection system as you might know it. Waste management is a haphazard affair, a combination of private contractors who service the wealthy and the public, indifferent to everyone else. The street is already a torrent of humanity. People surge in both directions, a river of bodies navigating a channel cluttered with obstacles. You have to watch your every step. The ground is uneven, a patchwork of dirt, gravel, and the occasional large, flat paving stone, a relic of some long-forgotten civic project. Puddles of murky, stagnant water from last night's rain fill the deeper ruts, and you carefully skirt them, knowing they contain a stew of unknown and unpleasant things. A speeding litter, carried on the shoulders of 4 sweating men, barrels through the crowd. "Make way! Make way!" One of them shouts, his voice rough. People scatter like startled birds, pressing themselves against the walls to avoid being knocked over by the curtained box carrying some unseen wealthy person. You feel a momentary flash of resentment. For them, the city is something to be carried over, its filth kept at a distance. For you, it is something to be waded through. You join the flow of pedestrians heading toward the main thoroughfare. The noise is a physical presence, a constant layered roar that presses in on you from all sides. It's the rumble of wooden cart wheels on stone, the sharp cries of vendors hawking their wares, the braying of a stubborn mule, the endless chatter of a dozen different conversations, and the distant, rhythmic sound of a blacksmith's hammer. There is no zoning in this part of the city. A small, smoky forge can be right next to a laundry, which is next to a tavern, which is built into the ground floor of your apartment block. Life and commerce are tangled together in a messy, vibrant, and deafening knot. You pull your thin wool cloak a little tighter around you, not for warmth, but as a flimsy shield against the press of the crowd. As you turn onto a wider, paved street, the scene becomes even more chaotic. This is a major artery, and it is choked with traffic. Heavy supply wagons, drawn by teams of massive oxen, inch their way forward, their drivers cracking whips and shouting curses. Men with handcarts piled high with amphorae of wine or oil struggle to find a path, their faces grim with effort. You see children darting through the chaos, their movements nimble and quick, some on errands, others simply taking advantage of the confusion to try and snatch a piece of fruit from an unattended stall. There's a raw, untamed energy to it all, a sense of a city operating at the very edge of its capacity. One shocking tidbit of Roman life is the sheer danger of its traffic. Legal texts from the period are full of cases involving collisions, injuries, and deaths caused by carts and animals. In fact, wheeled traffic was famously banned from the city center during the daylight hours to try and mitigate this very chaos, a rule that was clearly not being enforced in this particular district. You pass a thermopolium, a fast food counter open to the street. A large clay pot is set into the counter, steam rising from it in a fragrant cloud. The proprietor, a stout man with a stained apron, ladles a hot, savory-smelling lentil stew into a bowl for a customer. The sight and smell make your stomach ache with a sharp pang of hunger, but you have no coin for such luxuries this morning. Your purpose is singular and it lies further ahead, where the smell of the city begins to change. You keep walking, your senses on high alert. You watch the ground for filth. You listen for the warning shouts of cart drivers. And you keep a hand protectively over the small, nearly empty purse tied to your belt. Even in the light of day, opportunistic thieves are a constant threat. The further you walk toward the port, the more the air begins to take on a new character. The familiar city smells of smoke and sewage begin to mingle with a sharper, saltier tang. It's the scent of the sea, but it's not the clean, bracing smell you might imagine from a day at a modern beach. This is the smell of a working harbor: damp rope, wet wood, drying nets, and underlying it all, the unmistakable, pervasive aroma of fish. It's a smell that clings to the buildings and seems to seep into the very stones of the street. To many, it's an unpleasant odor, the perfume of hard labor and decay. But to you today, it is the smell of opportunity. It means you are getting close. You see sailors with weathered, sun-darkened skin, fishermen mending their nets on the side of the road, and merchants in foreign-looking clothes haggling loudly with local agents. The human landscape is shifting, becoming more transient and industrious. This is where the empire connects to the wider world, where goods arrive and depart on the rhythm of the tides. The journey is a microcosm of Roman life, a struggle against dirt, noise, and crowds, a constant negotiation for space, all driven by the basic, relentless need to procure the materials for survival. And you do it, not with anger or despair, but with the practiced, weary resignation of someone who knows no other way. This is simply what it takes to get from your home to the market. As you draw nearer to the docks, the ground becomes slick and muddy, coated with a permanent layer of fish scales that shimmer with a dull, silvery light. The air is so thick with the smell of the sea and its bounty that you can almost taste the salt on your tongue. The cacophony of the city streets gives way to a different kind of noise. The screech of gulls circling overhead, the rhythmic creak of wooden ships straining against their moorings, and the boisterous shouts of fishermen and market vendors. You have arrived at the fish market, the beating, bloody heart of the city's coastal commerce. It's not a tidy, organized building, but a sprawling, open-air chaos of stalls and tables set up right on the waterfront. Your destination is not the pristine front tables where the wealthy send their servants to buy whole, glistening sea bass or prized red mullet. Those fish are laid out carefully on beds of wet seaweed, their eyes bright, their scales perfect. They are destined for elegant dinner parties, to be baked with herbs and drizzled with the finest olive oil. Your business lies at the back of the market, in a corner where the ground is perpetually stained a dark, rusty red, and the smell becomes almost overwhelmingly intense. This is where the butchers and filleters do their work, and where the byproducts of their craft are sold for pennies or, in some cases, simply given away to those willing to haul them off. You approach a large, wet wooden table where a man with forearms as thick as your legs is expertly gutting a tuna. With a few swift, practiced motions of his short, sharp knife, he slices open the fish's belly. He reaches in with a bare hand and pulls out the viscera in a single, steaming mass of dark red and purple organs. He tosses this pile onto a lower slab, where it joins a growing mountain of similar refuse. This is what you have come for. You need fish entrails. Specifically, you need the intestines, the gills, the stomachs, and most importantly, the blood. It sounds like the shopping list for a curse, not a condiment. The man barely glances at you as you approach. For sauce, he grunts, not pausing in his work. You nod. He gestures with his knife toward the pile. Take what you need, just the small stuff. The big guts are for the tanners. You learn something new every day. You hadn't realized tanneries used fish guts, another smelly industry to add to the city's charming portfolio. You thank him and get to work. You brought a large, sturdy wicker basket lined with thick leaves to try and contain the mess. Using your hands, you begin to sort through the pile. It's a gruesome task. The entrails are slimy and cool to the touch, a tangle of textures and shapes. The smell is immense, a primal odor of iron-rich blood and the faint, underlying scent of the ocean. This is the part of the process that would turn the stomach of any modern foodie. There are no gloves, no food-safe surfaces, no concept of bacteriology. There is only a pragmatic acceptance that this is how it is done. As you sort, you are not just grabbing indiscriminately. You are looking for the guts of specific types of fish. Mackerel, anchovy, and sardine entrails are considered the best. They have a higher fat content and produce a more flavorful, complex sauce. You push aside the larger, tougher intestines of the tuna and look for the more delicate, smaller pieces. While you're doing this, you are also on the lookout for another key ingredient: whole small fish. You need tiny, silvery anchovies and sardines, fish so small it's not worth the effort to gut them. They will be thrown into the mix whole, to dissolve and add their flesh to the fermenting brew. You flag down a different vendor, a woman selling baskets of these small, shimmering fish. They are fresh, caught just this morning, their eyes still clear. You haggle for a price, a quick, familiar back and forth of numbers and gestures. There are no fixed prices here. Everything is a negotiation. You finally agree on a modest sum, and you pour her basket of fish directly into your own, on top of the growing pile of guts and blood. The silver of the whole fish contrasts vividly with the dark red of the entrails. Historians often debate the exact recipes for different grades of garum, but nearly all agree that this fundamental combination, fish guts, blood, and small, whole, oily fish, was the starting point for the most common varieties. Your basket is getting heavy now, and it's beginning to leak. A thin trickle of pinkish, bloody liquid is seeping through the wicker and dripping onto your sandals. You know you have to move quickly. You are a walking, dripping biohazard. And while such sights are common here, they are less welcome in the more civilized parts of the city you must pass through on your way home. You lift the heavy basket, grunting with the effort. The rough wicker digs into your fingers. You have procured the first and most important component of your sauce. It's a collection of things that most societies would consider waste, the absolute dregs of the fishing industry. But here, in this time and place, you see it for what it is: potential. It is the raw, unrefined essence of the sea, a treasure trove of protein and flavor waiting to be unlocked by the slow, relentless magic of salt and sun. You give a final nod to the fish butcher, who has already moved on to another massive fish, his knife a silver blur. He is a key, if uncelebrated, part of an enormous economic chain. His waste product is your raw material. His refuse is the foundation of a condiment that will travel in clay jars, called amphorae, to the furthest corners of the Roman world, flavoring the meals of soldiers on distant frontiers and nobles in their country villas. But for now, it's just a heavy, dripping basket of guts and fish. Your next stop is for the second, equally crucial ingredient, an element so valuable it was once used to pay soldiers: salt. Your perilous journey through the city is not over yet. Leaving the chaotic, wet world of the fish market behind, you now have a new problem. Your basket is heavy, dripping, and drawing the unwanted attention of every fly in a 10-block radius. A small, buzzing cloud has formed around you, a loyal and deeply annoying escort. You adjust your grip on the wicker handle, shifting the weight, and begin the next leg of your journey. You are heading away from the sea now, back into the dense warren of the city, toward the salt market. The path is just as crowded, but the smells are changing again. The overwhelming scent of fish is slowly being replaced by the dust of the streets, the aroma of baking bread, and the scent of wood smoke. You try to walk quickly, ignoring the looks of distaste from other pedestrians as they give your dripping, fly-covered basket a wide berth. There's no modern concept of a personal bubble, but a leaking basket of fish guts seems to create a natural one. Your destination is a specific vendor, a man who gets his wares not from the sea, but from the great salt flats miles inland. Salt is life. It preserves food, it seasons meals, it's used in medicine and religious rituals. Its importance cannot be overstated. The word salary itself is believed to derive from the Latin word for salt, reflecting the time when soldiers were paid in rations of this precious mineral. Securing a good supply of pure, clean salt is just as important as selecting the right fish parts. Bad salt, full of dirt and other impurities, can ruin the entire batch of sauce, wasting months of work and a significant investment. The salt vendor's stall is not like the others. It's drier and cleaner. Instead of piles of produce or slabs of meat, he has large, coarse sacks and carefully stacked blocks of a grayish-white mineral. The air here has a dry, clean, almost sterile smell to it. The vendor is an old man, his skin weathered and wrinkled like a dried apple. He sits on a low stool, watching the world go by with an air of calm patience. His product doesn't spoil. He can afford to wait. "Looking for sauce salt?" he asks as you approach, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It's clear your basket announces your intentions better than any words could. You nod, setting the heavy basket down for a moment to give your arms a rest. "The usual?" he asks. You confirm, and he gestures to a large, open sack filled with coarse, gravelly crystals of salt. This is not the fine, white, iodized powder of a modern kitchen. This is rock salt, mined from the earth, and it's full of other minerals that give it a grayish tint and a more complex, potent flavor. The price of salt is high. It represents a significant portion of the cost of making your fish sauce. You untie the small purse from your belt and carefully count out the worn bronze and copper coins. The transaction is slow and deliberate. Every coin is inspected. There's a constant worry about counterfeit or shaved coins, a primitive form of currency debasement where people would shave off a tiny sliver of precious metal from the edge of a coin before passing it on. This is one of those relatable pain points of history. The fear of being shortchanged is timeless. Once the payment is settled, the vendor takes a sturdy scoop and begins to measure out your salt. You need a lot of it. The ratio is crucial. Recipes varied, but a common one called for 2 parts fish to 1 part salt by weight. This massive quantity of salt is what prevents the fish from simply rotting into a toxic mess. It draws the water out of the fish cells through osmosis and creates an environment where the beneficial, salt-tolerant microbes can thrive, while the dangerous, spoilage-causing bacteria are killed off. It's a form of chemical warfare on a microscopic level, a trick of preservation discovered centuries ago and perfected through trial and error. He pours the salt not into a bag, but directly into your basket, right on top of the guts and whole fish. The white and gray crystals cascade over the dark red and silver, a dusty, abrasive blanket. The effect is immediate. You can see the salt begin to draw moisture out of the fish, a process that will accelerate dramatically under the heat of the sun. The basket, already heavy, now feels like it's filled with rocks. You thank the old man, and with a deep breath and a grunt of effort, you lift your cargo. The journey home will be even more of a struggle. As you retrace your steps through the city, the basket feels twice as heavy. Your arms ache, and the muscles in your back are screaming in protest. You have to stop every few hundred feet to rest, setting the basket down and shaking the feeling back into your numb fingers. People in the street now give you even stranger looks. Your basket is no longer just dripping with blood. It's now also leaving a small trail of gritty salt. You are a one-person environmental contamination event. This is the unglamorous reality behind so many ancient products. We see the final, sealed amphora in a museum, but we don't see the back-breaking labor, the filth, and the sheer physical exertion required to create its contents. There is no home delivery, no shopping cart, no convenient packaging. There is only the strength of your own body. You finally, mercifully, arrive back at the doorway of your tenement building. The final challenge awaits, hauling this monstrously heavy, smelly, dripping basket up 3 flights of rickety stairs. You take a deep breath, brace yourself, and begin the slow, arduous ascent. Each step is a careful, deliberate movement. You hug the basket close to your body to keep it balanced, ignoring the foul liquid that is now soaking into the front of your tunic. The climb feels endless. The sounds of your neighbors, which were a distant symphony this morning, are now an intimate, close-up portrait of life. You hear a mother singing a lullaby, the clatter of pottery, the low murmur of conversation through a thin wall. By the time you reach your floor, you are drenched in sweat and your arms are trembling with exhaustion. You have the raw materials. You have the fish and the salt. But the work has only just begun. The next stage involves preparing the place where the magic and the stench will happen. You don't take the basket into your small living quarters. That would be unthinkable. The smell alone would make the room uninhabitable within an hour, not to mention the mess. Instead, You carry it past your doorway and up one final, even more precarious flight of stairs. This ladder-like staircase leads to the one luxury your tenement building offers: a flat roof. Up here, under the vast, open sky, the world feels different. The roar of the city is muted to a distant, constant hum, and a breeze, smelling of the sea and the sun, offers a welcome respite from the stale air of the floors below. The roof is a communal space, a patchwork of packed earth, cracked tiles, and wooden planks. It's where people hang their laundry, where children play when the streets are too dangerous, and where neighbors gather on warm evenings to gossip and escape the suffocating heat of their rooms. It is also, for your purposes, an industrial workspace. You are not the only one who uses the roof for production. In one corner, a neighbor has a small loom set up. In another, you can see the faint scorch marks where someone operates a tiny, illegal forge at night. This rooftop is a testament to the ingenuity of the urban poor, a shared space adapted for 100 different needs. Today, a significant portion of it will become your fermentation station. Your first task is to prepare the vats. These are not gleaming stainless steel tanks. They are large, wide-mouthed ceramic pots, a type of pottery known as a dolia. They stand about waist high, with thick walls and a rough, unglazed finish. You own 3 of them, and they are your most valuable possessions after your loom. You inherited them from your mother, who inherited them from hers. They are cracked and chipped in places, showing the signs of generations of use, but they are still watertight. Sourcing such large pots would be a major expense. A potter would have to construct them by hand, a laborious process, and firing something so large in a kiln is a risky endeavor. One crack, and the whole thing is ruined. Historians find fragments of these massive pots all over the Roman world, evidence of the widespread production of everything from wine and olive oil to this pungent fish sauce. The pots are currently empty, save for a layer of dust and a few dried leaves that have blown in. They need to be cleaned. You use the last of the water you hauled up this morning, pouring it into the first pot and scrubbing the inside with a bundle of rough twigs. There is no soap. Your goal is not sterilization in the modern sense, a concept that doesn't exist, but simply to remove the visible grime. You scrub away the dirt from the previous year's production, and as you work, the faint, phantom smell of old fish sauce rises from the ceramic, a ghost of batches past. You can feel the rough texture of the unglazed clay under your makeshift brush. It's a porous material, and you know that over the years, it has absorbed the essence of its contents. These pots are seasoned, much like a modern cast-iron skillet, but with the memory of fermented fish instead of bacon. After scrubbing all 3 pots, you tip them over to pour out the dirty water, which runs in a muddy stream across the roof before finding a crack to drip through, likely onto a neighbor's laundry hanging on the floor below. There are no apologies. It's an expected consequence of rooftop living. You then set the pots upright in the sunniest part of the roof, a spot that gets direct, baking sunlight from mid-morning until late afternoon. The sun will dry them quickly and, in the minds of the people of your time, purify them with its heat. Now, you turn your attention back to the basket. The salt has already worked a dramatic transformation. The whole fish are beginning to look desiccated. their skins wrinkled. The entrails have released a surprising amount of bloody, briny liquid, which has pooled at the bottom of the basket, dissolving the salt into a thick, gritty slurry. The flies are still with you, a buzzing, persistent halo. You drag the heavy basket over to your prepared pots. The stage is set. You have the raw ingredients and you have the vessels. The next step is the most crucial and in many ways the most stomach-turning. It's time to combine them, to create the foul, primordial soup that will, over many weeks, transform into one of the most sought-after flavors of the ancient world. You take a moment to look out over the city from your rooftop vantage point. You can see the smoke rising from 1,000 other small fires, and hear the distant rumble of a world that is constantly in motion. Down there, life is a chaotic struggle. Up here, there is a sense of purpose and control. This process, this ancient and odorous craft, is your contribution. It's a way to take the cheapest, most discarded parts of the sea's bounty and through knowledge passed down through generations, turn them into something of value. It's a small act of defiance against the precarity of your existence. There's no insurance, no social safety net, no guarantee that your work will pay off. A sudden plague of flies, a week of unexpected rain, or a cracked pot could ruin everything. But you proceed with the quiet confidence of experience. You are not just mixing fish guts in a pot. You are participating in a tradition, a complex chemical process understood not through science, but through instinct, smell, and touch. The sun beats down on your back and you know it's time to begin. The art of the sauce maker is about to be practiced. The sun is climbing higher in the sky, its heat becoming more intense. The ceramic of the pots is now warm to the touch. It's time to begin the layering, a process that is as methodical as it is messy. You kneel beside the first pot, the rough texture of the rooftop scraping against your knees. You reach into the basket with both hands and pull out a dripping, heavy scoop of the fish and salt mixture. The sensation is unpleasant. The slurry is cold, gritty and slimy all at once. The sharp edges of the salt crystals scratch against your skin, while the fish parts feel unnervingly soft. You drop the first layer into the bottom of the pot. It lands with a wet, heavy sound. Then you reach back to the salt vendor's sack, which you laboriously hauled up here with the basket. You take a scoop of the pure, dry salt and sprinkle it generously over the layer of fish. This is the rhythm of the work. A layer of the fish and guts mixture, then a layer of pure salt back and forth, like making a truly horrifying lasagna. The layers are not thick, perhaps only a few inches each. The goal is to ensure that every part of the fish is in direct contact with a high concentration of salt. Any pockets or gaps could create a space for the wrong kind of decay to begin, leading to rot instead of fermentation. As you work, your hands and arms become coated in a thick, pinkish paste of blood, fish bits, and salt. The smell is immense. It's the raw, metallic scent of blood mixed with the sharp, oceanic funk of the entrails and the clean, mineral smell of the salt. It's a powerful, almost violent aroma that seems to clog your throat and nose. You have to breathe through your mouth, trying not to gag. This is not a job for the faint of heart or the weak of stomach. It's a visceral, hands-on process that blurs the line between cooking and butchery. There's a strange, almost scholarly debate among food historians about the exact consistency of this initial mixture. Was it a watery slurry or a drier, more heavily salted mash? The answer likely depends on the region, the desired quality of the final product, and the personal recipe of the maker. Yours is a moderately wet mix, a family tradition you trust. You continue this layering process, moving from the first pot to the second, and then the third, distributing the contents of your basket evenly among them. The work is physically demanding. You are constantly bending, scooping, and lifting. Your back, already sore from the morning's hauling, begins to protest with a dull, steady ache. The sun is beating down relentlessly, and sweat drips from your brow, stinging your eyes. You pause to wipe your forehead with the back of your arm, leaving a grotesque, sticky smear across your skin. You feel a small, grim satisfaction in the work. Each layer is a step closer to the final product. Each scoop of salt is an investment in preservation, a ward against spoilage. Once all the fish and a significant portion of the salt have been distributed, you add the final touch. You lay a series of flat, heavy stones on top of the mixture in each pot. This is to weigh down the contents, pressing them together and helping to force the liquid out of the fish tissues. It also helps to keep the solids submerged under the brine that will soon form, preventing the top layer from being exposed to the air, which could lead to mold. Now, with the pots filled and weighted, the most passive, and in some ways most difficult, part of the process begins. The weight. You cover the tops of the pots, not with airtight lids but with loose-fitting wooden planks. This is to keep out the rain, birds, and any curious pests, but it still allows for some air circulation. The microbes that will perform the fermentation need oxygen, but too much exposure is a bad thing. It's a delicate balance, learned through generations of trial and error. There's no instruction manual, no cooking blog with 5-star reviews to guide you. There is only the inherited knowledge that says, this is how it is done. You stand up, your knees cracking in protest, and survey your work. 3 large ceramic pots sitting in the sun, filled with a foul-smelling concoction of fish guts and salt. To an outsider, it would look like you were preparing to dispose of hazardous waste. But you see the beginnings of liquid gold. You know that inside those pots, a silent, powerful transformation is about to begin. The salt will draw the water from the fish, creating a super-concentrated brine. In this brine, enzymes from the fish's own digestive tract will begin to break down the proteins and fats, essentially digesting the fish from the inside out. This process, called autolysis, is the key. The fish isn't rotting. It's dissolving into a rich, complex soup of amino acids, the very building blocks of flavor. You clean your hands and arms as best you can with a rag and the last of your water. The smell, however, will linger on your skin for days, a constant, faint reminder of your work. It's the professional perfume of the garum maker. You are tired. Your body aches from the physical labor. But as you look at the 3 pots sitting silently on the rooftop, you feel a sense of accomplishment. The most physically demanding and gory part is over. Now, you must surrender control to the elements, to the sun, the air, and the invisible world of microbes. Your role shifts from one of active labor to one of patient observation. All you can do now is wait and endure the smell. The days that follow settle into a new rhythm, one dictated by the sun and the slow alchemical process happening in the clay pots on your roof. The waiting has begun, and it is an exercise in patience and sensory endurance. This is not a set it and forget it recipe. The mixture needs to be tended to daily. Every morning, after your meager breakfast of that same gritty bread, you make the climb to the roof. Your first task is to stir the vats. You remove the wooden planks and are greeted by a wave of scent that is evolving daily. The initial raw, bloody smell has begun to deepen and transform into something else, something intensely pungent and complexly fishy. It's a smell that announces itself with authority, a funky, powerful aroma that is, to be blunt, breathtakingly awful to the uninitiated. You take a long wooden paddle, a tool used only for this purpose, and you plunge it into the thick, gritty slurry. You stir each pot thoroughly, from the bottom up. The purpose of this is twofold. First, it ensures that the salt remains evenly distributed, preventing any one area from becoming less saline and therefore vulnerable to spoilage. Second, it aerates the mixture, which, as we now know, encourages the growth of the specific halophilic, salt-loving bacteria that are essential to the fermentation process. To you, it's not about bacteria. It's about making sure it works right. The feel of the paddle is your guide. At first, the mixture is thick and coarse, full of distinct solids. But as the days turn into weeks, you feel a change. The larger pieces of fish begin to break down, the flesh dissolving, the small bones softening. The slurry becomes smoother, more homogeneous, a thick, brown, soupy mash. The sun is your primary tool. The vats are left in direct, baking sunlight for as long as possible. The heat accelerates the enzymatic process, speeding up the breakdown of the fish proteins. A typical fermentation period in the hot Mediterranean summer would be 2 to 3 months. It is a long, slow cook, powered by the sky. When it rains, you have to rush to the roof to make sure the wooden covers are secure, as too much fresh water could dilute the brine and ruin the entire batch. Your life is now tied to these 3 bubbling, stinking pots. They are the first thing you check in the morning and the last thing you look at before the sun goes down. And the stench. It becomes a permanent feature of your life. The smell is not contained to the roof. It's a dense, heavy odor that sinks, seeping down through the building's cracks and air shafts. Your immediate neighbors are, by now, accustomed to this annual olfactory event. It's part of the rhythm of the year, the sign that you are brewing your family's flavorful and financial future. But it doesn't mean they like it. You get resentful glares in the hallway. You hear muttered comments when you pass on the stairs. Your apartment, being directly under the fermentation station, is particularly saturated with the aroma. It clings to your clothes, your hair, the blankets you sleep under. It becomes your personal scent. There's no escaping it. This is the part of ancient life that is so hard to imagine, the lack of recourse. There is no homeowners association to complain to, no ordinance against creating a powerful, pervasive stink. If your neighbor decides to make the Roman equivalent of a chemical weapon on their roof, you just have to live with it. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. During this waiting period, life goes on. The creation of the garum is a background process. You still have to perform your daily tasks, hauling water, mending clothes, perhaps doing some weaving on your small loom to earn a few extra coins. But the sauce is always there, a presence at the back of your mind and the front of your nostrils. Sometimes you'll see your neighbors on the roof, carefully hanging their laundry as far away from your pots as possible, their noses wrinkled in distaste. It's a silent, ongoing negotiation of shared space. One of the great historical tidbits is the sheer scale of this industry. While you are a small, artisanal producer, there were massive garum factories, particularly in places like Spain and North Africa. Archaeologists have uncovered the ruins of these facilities, with vast courtyards lined with huge, stone-lined fermentation vats, some of which could hold thousands of gallons. The smell from one of these industrial sites must have been legendary, capable of being detected from miles away. It's a strange thing to imagine. A city where one of the primary pillars of its economy is based on producing a smell that would be considered an environmental disaster today. You watch the contents of the pots change color, from a pinkish red to a deep, murky brown. You see the liquid level rise as the salt and enzymes draw more and more fluid out of the fish solids. You are witnessing a process of controlled decay, a culinary art that rides the fine line between preservation and putrefaction. It requires a strong stomach, a tolerance for social friction, and an unshakable faith in the process. This period of waiting is not passive. It is a time of vigilance, of tending, and of enduring. It's a testament to human resilience, not in the face of a dramatic battle or a natural disaster, but in the face of a slow, mundane, and profoundly smelly reality. You are not just waiting for food. You are waiting for a transformation, for the foul to become the flavorful, for the raw to become the refined. And you do it all under the watchful, unforgiving eye of the sun. The passing of 2 months has woven the smell of your rooftop enterprise into the very fabric of the neighborhood. It is no longer a novelty. It is a feature of the summer air, as familiar as the heat haze that shimmers over the city's rooftops. This is where the story of your fish sauce broadens, from a personal project into a social phenomenon. You are, in effect, living next to a small, artisanal scent bomb, and so are all of your neighbors. This reality highlights a fundamental difference between the ancient city and the modern one: the complete and utter absence of zoning laws. In your world, there is no designated industrial zone, no residential district, and no commercial area. It is all one chaotic, jumbled-up entity. A blacksmith with his noisy hammer and smoky forge could be your next-door neighbor. A tannery, with its vats of animal hides soaking in urine and other caustic substances, could be just down the street. Your own rooftop operation is a perfect example. While it provides for your family, it imposes a significant sensory burden on everyone within a certain radius. Life in a Roman tenement is a constant, unavoidable immersion in the lives and smells of others. You experience this social friction firsthand. The woman who lives across the hall from you now makes a great show of holding a cloth over her nose whenever she sees you. The family below you has started burning a cheap, acrid incense in their room, a futile attempt to mask the pervasive fishy odor that seeps through their ceiling. You can smell their incense mingling with your fish sauce, creating a new, even more bizarre aroma in the hallway. It's a silent war of smells. There are no direct confrontations. Openly complaining would be a breach of the unspoken code of tenement life. Everyone is struggling. Everyone has their own noisy, messy, or smelly way of getting by. To complain about your neighbor's livelihood would be to invite scrutiny of your own. So, the tensions simmer beneath a surface of weary tolerance. One afternoon, as you are stirring the vats, the man who lives on the floor above you comes onto the roof to collect his drying tunic. He is a stonemason, a large man with hands calloused and permanently gray with dust. He walks over to your station, a place most neighbors actively avoid. He doesn't hold his nose. He looks into one of the pots, his face unreadable. The contents are now a deep brown, bubbling slowly in the heat, the fish solids almost completely dissolved into a thick, uniform sludge. "Almost ready," he says, his voice a low rumble. It's not a question. It's a statement from someone who has seen this process his entire life. You nod. "Another few weeks," you reply. He grunts, a sound of acknowledgement. "My wife's been asking. She says her cooking's not the same without the good stuff." This small interaction is a reminder that while the smell is a nuisance, the product is a necessity. He is not just a disgruntled neighbor. He is also a future customer. His comment is a tacit acknowledgement of your skill and the quality of your product. This is a key aspect of this small-scale urban production. You are not just making sauce for some anonymous market. You are making it for your community. Your reputation is built year after year, batch after batch, on the rooftops and in the kitchens of this single, teeming building. This is microeconomics at its most personal. Academics sometimes speculate about the social dynamics of these tenement buildings. Were they dens of conflict and misery, or were they vibrant, supportive vertical villages? The truth is likely somewhere in between. They were places of immense hardship and friction, but also of interdependence and shared resilience. Your neighbor might hate the smell of your sauce making for 3 months of the year, but he also knows that your high-quality sauce will make his family's bland diet of grains and vegetables palatable for the next 9. This complex web of mutual need and annoyance is what holds the social fabric of the building together. You think about the alternative. The truly massive Garum factories were located outside the city centers for a reason. Their smell would have been intolerable on an industrial scale. Pliny the Elder, a Roman author and naturalist, famously described the finest garum as being made from a specific type of mackerel in the factories of Cartagena, in modern-day Spain. He called this sauce garum saucirum, or sauce of the Allies, and it was so prized that its price could rival that of fine perfume. What you are making is a humble, domestic version of that luxury product, but the principle is the same. The smell is the price of flavor. You finish stirring the last pot and replace the wooden cover. As you straighten up, your back aching from the stooping, you look out over the city again. You are one of thousands of small-time artisans. each contributing their own unique noise and smell to the great, chaotic symphony of the city. From this rooftop, you can see the evidence of countless other livelihoods. The weaver's laundry, the potter's chimney, the baker's smokestack. Your fish sauce smell is just one note in this complex chord. It is the scent of your family's survival, a potent announcement to the world that, despite the hardship and the squalor, you are enduring. You are not just surviving. You are creating something that others desire, something that brings a spark of savory joy to the daily grind. The smell may be a bomb, but it's a bomb that explodes into flavor. The day you've been waiting for finally arrives. 3 months have passed since you first layered the fish and salt in the vats. The relentless summer sun has done its work. The last few weeks have been a period of watchful waiting, of judging the readiness of the sauce not by a calendar, but by a combination of signs that you know by instinct. The bubbling in the vats has slowed to a near standstill. The color of the mixture has deepened to a rich, dark, reddish brown, the color of old leather. And the smell, while still profoundly powerful, has matured. The raw, rotten fish edge has mellowed, replaced by a complex, savory, and almost nutty aroma. It's still not a scent that one would call pleasant, but it now smells like food. It smells like it's ready. Today is the day you will strain the first liquid, the precious fluid known as liquamen. This is the finest quality product of your labor, the Roman equivalent of extra virgin olive oil. It is the pure, filtered essence of the fermented fish, the most potent and flavorful, and therefore the most valuable. The process requires a delicate touch and specialized equipment. You bring a large, clean basket with a very fine weave to the rooftop, along with another empty, clean amphora, a tall clay jar with a narrow neck, perfect for storing the finished product. You place the finely woven basket over the mouth of the empty amphora. This basket will act as your sieve. The weave is tight enough to trap the solid sludge and any remaining small bones, but loose enough to allow the precious liquid to drip through. There's no cheesecloth, no sterile filters. This basket, painstakingly woven by hand, is the height of filtration technology available to you. Any small bits that get through are just part of the product. With great care, you begin to ladle the fermented mash from the first pot into the basket. It's a slow, painstaking process. You don't dump the whole vat at once. That would overwhelm the filter and make a mess. You pour one ladleful at a time, letting the liquid drain through before adding the next. The first drops begin to fall into the amphora below. They are not a murky brown like the sludge, but a surprisingly clear, amber-colored liquid. It catches the sunlight and gleams like honey or fine wine. This is the liquid gold you have been working towards. The process is mesmerizingly slow. A thin, steady stream and then a patient drip, drip, drip of amber fluid. The air is thick with a concentrated, savory scent. It's a moment of truth. As the amphora slowly begins to fill, you feel a sense of profound relief and satisfaction. It has worked. The months of labor, the endurance of the smell, the financial risk of buying the salt, it has all paid off. You can see the quality of the liquid. It's clear, not cloudy, a sign of a good, clean fermentation. You continue ladling, rotating between the 3 pots to drain the liquamen from each. The solid mash that remains in the basket is a thick, dark, pungent paste. This is not waste. It will be processed later. But for now, your focus is entirely on the pure liquid. Historians sometimes get tied in knots over the terminology. Was garum the liquid and liquamen the sludge, or the other way around? Or were the terms used interchangeably? The general consensus now is that liquamen often referred to this first, highest quality extraction, while garum could be a more general term for the sauce in its various forms. But for you, these are just words. You know what you've made. This is the good stuff. As you work, you can't help but feel a deep connection to the generations before you who performed this exact same ritual on this very roof. Your mother taught you how to read the signs, how to know when the sauce was ready. She taught you how to ladle it gently, how to avoid stirring up the sediment at the bottom of the vat. This knowledge was her inheritance to you, more valuable than any amount of coin. It is a living tradition, passed down not in books, but through hands-on practice. You are a link in a long chain of flavor makers. It takes the better part of the morning to drain all the liquamen from the vats. By the time you are done, the receiving amphora is nearly full. You have produced several gallons of the finest quality fish sauce. You carefully lift the dripping basket of sludge off the amphora and set it aside. You peer into the neck of the jar, admiring the clear, amber liquid within. This is your profit. This is your security for the coming months. A portion of this will be used in your own kitchen to transform your bland meals into savory delights. But the majority will be sold or bartered. You can sell it to your neighbors, like the stonemason, who appreciate a locally made, high-quality product. You can also take it to a specialized vendor in the market, who will buy it from you and sell it on to wealthier households. This single amphora represents a significant amount of potential income. It's the payoff for 3 months of living inside a bubble of stench. It is the ultimate proof that, with the right knowledge and a lot of hard work, you can transform the most disgusting of raw materials into something refined, desirable, and valuable. The human ingenuity on display is profound. It's a mastery of a natural process, a harnessing of decay itself to create a delicacy. You feel a sense of pride that is deep and well-earned. But the work is not over. The basket full of pungent, leftover sludge still needs to be dealt with. There is more value to be squeezed from this batch yet. With the precious, amber liquamen safely decanted into its amphora, your attention now turns to the thick, wet, pungent sludge left behind in the straining basket. To a modern observer, this dark, fibrous paste would look like industrial waste, something to be disposed of as quickly and carefully as possible. But in your world, nothing is wasted. This leftover mash is a valuable secondary product. It is called a lek, and it is the food of the common people. While the wealthy might savor the clear, potent liquid sauce, it is this humble, salty paste that will provide flavor for the masses. Your task now is to process the elec. You transfer the sludge from the straining basket into a wide, shallow clay basin. The texture is like a thick, gritty oatmeal, composed of the now unrecognizable fish solids, softened bones, and a high concentration of salt. It is still saturated with the savory liquid, but it's too thick to pass through the fine filter. The goal is to press it, to squeeze out every last drop of flavorful liquid, and to create a more concentrated, storable paste. You don't have a screw press like those used for olives or grapes. Your technology is much simpler. You use your hands and a flat, heavy stone. You spread the elec in an even layer in the basin. Then you begin to knead and press it with your knuckles, much like you would knead bread dough. The friction and pressure release more of the liquid, which pools in the bottom of the basin. The smell is still incredibly strong, a thick, earthy, fishy aroma that clings to the air. As you work the paste, you can feel the tiny, softened bones crunching under your fingers. It's a strangely tactile experience. After kneading it for a while, you place the heavy, flat stone on top of the mash, using its weight to slowly and steadily press out the remaining liquid over the next hour. While you wait, you collect this secondary liquid. It's cloudier and darker than the first-run liquamen, with more suspended solids. This is a lower-grade fish sauce. It doesn't have the clarity or the refined flavor of the first pressing, but it is still potent and highly useful. You pour this second-run sauce into a smaller, less valuable clay jug. This jug won't be sold to a discerning merchant. It will be kept for your own daily use in the kitchen, or perhaps traded with a close neighbor for a loaf of bread or a handful of vegetables. It's a perfect example of product tiering, an ancient economic practice born of necessity. You have your premium product liquamen, and your standard, everyday product, the second-run liquid. Once the pressing is complete, you are left with the final product, the elec paste itself. It is now a much drier, denser mass. This paste is essentially a flavor concentrate, a potent umami bomb. A small dab of it could be stirred into a pot of boiling grains or a vegetable stew to give it a powerful, savory, salty kick. It was the poor person's seasoning, a way to make a monotonous and bland diet interesting. Soldiers on the campaign would carry small pots of elec, as it was stable, nutritious, full of protein and minerals, and an easy way to flavor their rations. For you, this paste is a staple food. You will store it in a small, covered crock in your larder, and it will last for months. You carefully scoop the finished elec paste into its designated storage pot. The work is finally, truly, almost done. You have successfully taken one basket of fish guts and turned it into 3 distinct, valuable products: a premium, clear liquid sauce, a secondary, everyday liquid sauce, and a potent, long-lasting flavor paste. This is the very definition of nose-to-tail eating, or in this case, guts-to-sludge processing. It's a model of efficiency that would be the envy of any modern zero-waste advocate. This process of creating different grades of products is well documented. Archaeologists have found amphorae labeled with varying quality descriptors, and writers of the time described the different uses for each. The finest sauce was for the tables of the rich. The cheaper sauce and the elec paste were for everyone else. It's a stark reminder of the rigid social hierarchy of the Roman world, a hierarchy that was reflected even in its condiments. The flavor on a senator's tongue was literally different from the flavor on a legionary's. You take a moment to clean your tools, the paddle, the basin, the pressing stone, and the vats themselves. You scrub the now empty fermentation pots, preparing them for storage until next year. The rooftop, for the first time in 3 months, is beginning to lose its signature scent, which is now contained within your sealed jars and crocks. The air feels strangely clean, almost empty. As you finish your cleanup, you feel a deep sense of accomplishment. You have completed the cycle. You started with waste and ended with wealth, or at least with security. You have filled your larder and created a product that will bring in much needed income. It was a process that was grueling, smelly, and socially awkward, but its successful conclusion is a triumph of skill, patience, and tradition. The final step in this culinary journey, however, is not in production but in application. Soon, you will take your newly crafted flavor and put it to the ultimate test, the family dinner. But first, there is one more creative step for the most valuable portion of your haul. Your day's work on the rooftop is not quite finished. While the second-rate sauce and the elect paste are complete as they are, the precious, amber liquamen you first drained is destined for a higher purpose. This premium sauce is a blank canvas, a powerful base flavor that can be customized and enhanced to create a variety of specialized, luxury condiments. Selling it as is would be profitable, but transforming it into a more complex, artisanal product could dramatically increase its value. This is where the art of the sauce maker truly shines, moving from the brute force of fermentation to the delicate craft of flavoring. You carry the main amphora of liquamen carefully down from the roof to your small living space. The risk of dropping it on the treacherous stairs is a source of great anxiety. A single slip could shatter months of work. You place the heavy jar in a corner of your room, its presence seeming to fill the small space with an aura of potential. From a small wooden chest where you keep your most valuable possessions, you retrieve a collection of smaller clay jugs and a selection of dried herbs and spices. These ingredients are not cheap. You have a small pouch of peppercorns, which have traveled an immense distance along the trade routes from India. They are eye-wateringly expensive, used one at a time. You have a bundle of dried oregano, wild thyme, and fennel seeds, which you gathered yourself from the hills outside the city last autumn. And you have a small, precious jar of honey, thick and dark, a luxury you trade for with a beekeeper from a nearby village. Finally, you have a flask of sour wine, not good enough for drinking but perfect for cooking. Each of these ingredients represents a different possible flavor profile for your sauce. This practice of customizing garum is what created the bewildering array of sauces mentioned in ancient Roman texts. A simple garum mixed with wine was called onogarum. Mixed with vinegar, it became oxygarum. Mixed with honey, it was the highly sought-after meligarum. These weren't just random concoctions. They were specific products for specific culinary uses. It's a level of sophistication that counters the simplistic image of Romans just splashing fishy salt water on everything. They were discerning connoisseurs of umami with a complex palate. You decide to divide your precious liquamen into 4 batches. The first, largest portion you will leave plain. This pure, unadulterated sauce is versatile and will be the easiest to sell or trade. You carefully ladle it from the large amphora into a slightly smaller, well-sealed jar. For the second batch, you will make onogarum. You pour a measure of the liquamen into a mixing bowl and slowly stir in the sour wine. The ratio is something you judge by eye and by smell, a recipe passed down through your family. The wine cuts through some of the fishiness of the sauce, adding a layer of acidic brightness. The resulting mixture is a little thinner and has a sharper, more fruity aroma. This sauce would be perfect for deglazing a pan or for dressing cooked vegetables. For the third batch, you will create a spiced version. You take your mortar and pestle, another treasured kitchen tool, and grind a few precious peppercorns with a generous pinch of dried oregano and fennel seeds. The act of grinding releases their essential oils, filling your small room with a beautiful, aromatic cloud of scent that does a valiant job of masking the underlying fishiness. You mix this fragrant powder into another portion of the liquamen. This creates a sauce that is not just salty and savory, but also warm, pungent, and herbaceous. This would be a perfect marinade for a piece of grilled meat or a more robust fish. It is a more complex and chaffy product, one that could fetch a higher price from a discerning buyer. There's a quiet debate among scholars whether these additions were made by the primary producer like you, or by the end user in their own kitchen. The evidence suggests both were common, with large-scale producers making standardized varieties, and small-scale artisans like you creating unique house blends. The final, smallest, and most luxurious batch will be Garum. You take the thick, dark honey and gently warm it in a small pot over your charcoal brazier until it becomes liquid and flowing. Then, you slowly drizzle it into the last portion of the liquamen, stirring constantly. The sweet honey and the salty, savory fish sauce create a magical combination, a perfect balance of sweet, salty, and umami. This is the ancient equivalent of a modern sweet and savory glaze. This sauce is a true luxury. It would be used sparingly, perhaps to glaze a roasted fowl or a piece of pork, creating a beautiful caramelized crust. You now have not one but 4 distinct products, each with its own character and culinary purpose. You have diversified your portfolio. This is a crucial survival strategy. If a potential buyer doesn't like the plain sauce, perhaps they will be tempted by the spiced version. It's a small-scale business plan, executed on the floor of your one-room apartment. You carefully pour each of your newly crafted sauces into its own small, labeled jug. The labels aren't paper. You simply scratch a symbol into the wet clay of a small tag before it dries. A simple W for the wine version, an H for the honey, a small cross for the spiced one. It's a simple, effective inventory system. As you seal the last jug, you feel a deep sense of pride. You have not just fermented fish guts. You have practiced a complex and nuanced culinary art. You have transformed a basic commodity into a range of artisanal goods. This process highlights the human need not just to eat, but to eat well. Not just to survive, but to find pleasure and variety in food. Even in the most challenging of circumstances, living in a crowded, unsanitary city, the drive to create delicious, complex flavors is a powerful and enduring part of the human spirit. Your larder is now full, your products are ready, and the final stage of this journey is about to begin, sealing them for their journey into the world. With your various sauces now crafted and resting in their respective jugs, the final stage of production begins, preparing them for storage and transport. This is not as simple as screwing on a lid. The technology of the time demands a more involved and permanent sealing process to ensure the product remains preserved and doesn't spoil or leak during its journey. Whether that journey is to the market down the street or to a distant port across the sea, the vessel of choice for this is the amphora, the iconic clay jar that was the shipping container of the ancient world. You have already filled the main amphora with pure, unadulterated liquamen. Now you must seal it. The neck of the amphora is narrow and designed for just this purpose. You first need a stopper. You have a collection of terracotta discs, essentially flat, round pieces of fired clay made specifically for this purpose. You select one that fits snugly into the mouth of the amphora, like a cork. But this alone is not enough to create an airtight seal. Any small gap could allow air to enter, which could lead to spoilage over time. To create a truly hermetic seal, you need a kind of ancient cement. You mix a small amount of pozzolana, a type of volcanic ash that creates a strong, hydraulic-setting cement, with a little lime and water. This creates a thick, gray paste. You carefully apply this paste around the rim of the terracotta stopper, filling any gaps between the disc and the neck of the amphora. You smooth it over with your finger, creating a solid, impenetrable cap. This cement will harden into a rock-solid seal that can only be broken by chipping it away. It's a permanent closure, a guarantee to the buyer that the contents have not been tampered with. Once the main amphora is sealed, you turn your attention to the smaller jugs containing your specialized sauces. You use the same method, finding smaller stoppers and applying the same cement paste. As you work, you are participating in a tradition that is fundamental to the Roman economy. The amphora was more than just a jar. It was a unit of measurement, a brand carrier, and a disposable container all in one. Archaeologists have found entire hills, like Monte Testaccio in Rome, made almost entirely of discarded amphorae, a testament to the sheer volume of goods that flowed into the city. After sealing the jars, the next step is labeling. While you used simple scratch marks for your own reference, a jar destined for the market needs more information. You take a brush and some black pigment made from charcoal and water. On the shoulder of the main amphora, you carefully paint a few key pieces of information. This painted label is called a titulus pictus. It serves as a combination of a brand name, a content list, and a shipping manifest. First, you might paint a symbol that identifies you as the producer, perhaps a simple rendering of a fish or a unique geometric mark. This is your brand, a mark of quality that regular customers would recognize. Below that, you write what the contents are. You paint the word for finest fish sauce, a declaration of its quality. You might also add the name of the fish it was made from, if it was a particularly prized type like mackerel. Finally, you could add the year of production, not by number, but by naming the two consuls who were in office that year. Just like a vintage on a wine bottle, this would tell a discerning buyer the age of the sauce. Some sauces, it was believed, improved with age. These tituli picti are a treasure trove for historians. When a shipwreck containing a cargo of amphorae is discovered, these painted labels allow archaeologists to reconstruct ancient trade routes, to understand what was being produced where, and to trace the economic connections of the empire. They are small, fragile pieces of data that tell a huge story. Your small jugs of specialized sauce get simpler labels. You paint winefish sauce or honeyfish sauce on them, clear and simple descriptions for a local market. With the jars sealed and labeled, they are now ready. They are no longer just food, they are commodities. They represent your hard work, your skill, and your investment, all locked away under a cement seal, waiting to be transformed back into coin or other goods. You arrange the finished products carefully in a corner of your room. The large amphora, heavy and imposing, stands next to the smaller, more delicate jugs. They look like a family of pottery, each with its own personality. Staring at them, you feel a sense of security. This is your larder, your bank account, and your insurance policy all in one. In a world with no refrigeration, this method of high salt fermentation and airtight sealing was a revolutionary technology. It allowed perishable goods like fish to be preserved indefinitely and transported over vast distances, making protein and flavor accessible to people far from the sea. The journey of the garum is almost complete. It has gone from being a pile of bloody refuse to a collection of refined, valuable, and beautifully packaged goods. It is a testament to the human ability to create order and value out of chaos and waste. The final test, the culmination of this entire epic process, will be the tasting. It is time to bring the fruits of your labor to the dinner table and experience the flavor you have worked so hard to create. The day's light begins to fade, and the sounds of the city shift from the roar of commerce to the lower hum of evening. It is time for the main meal of the day. Tonight, for the first time in months, you will cook with your new sauce. This is the moment of truth, the culmination of the entire long, arduous process. It's one thing to sell a product, but the real test of its quality is on your own palate. Your kitchen is not a separate room. It is a designated corner of your single living space, equipped with a small charcoal brazier for cooking. The smoke from the brazier stings your eyes and fills the room with a hazy, gray cloud before eventually finding its way out through the high vent. There's no chimney, a feature that makes indoor air quality a constant issue and the risk of fire a terrifying reality. You are careful with the glowing embers, treating them with the respect one gives to a dangerous animal. Tonight's meal is simple, a typical dinner for a family of your means. You have a handful of vegetables, some leeks and a cabbage, and a coarse grain, probably barley or spelt, that you will boil into a thick porridge. It is a bland, unexciting meal on its own, the kind of sustenance that fills the belly but does little to delight the senses. But tonight, it will be transformed. You retrieve the small jug of your second-run fish sauce, the cloudy, potent liquid you pressed from the elec. This is your everyday sauce, the one you don't sell. You unstop the jug and the familiar, powerful scent fills the room, salty, savory, and deeply funky. You pour a small amount into a little cup. Remember that gritty bread from this morning. You break off a small piece and dip it into the sauce. This is the first taste. You bring the bread to your mouth and chew thoughtfully. The effect is instantaneous and powerful. A jolt of pure, concentrated savoriness floods your senses. It is intensely salty, of course, but beneath the salt is a deep, mighty, complex flavor. The taste of the ocean, concentrated and transformed. It's the magic of umami, that fifth taste that the people of your time didn't have a word for but understood intimately. It is good, it is very good. A smile touches your lips. All the work, the smell, the aching back, it was all worth it. You feel a quiet surge of pride in your craft. Now to cook the meal. You chop the leeks and cabbage and set them to stew in a small amount of water in a clay pot over the brazier. While they soften, you boil the grains in another pot. Once the vegetables are tender and the grain is cooked into a thick porridge, you combine them. The result is a pale, unappetizing-looking mush. This is where the transformation happens. You take a spoonful of your fish sauce and stir it into the pot. You don't need much. The sauce is incredibly potent. You stir it through, and the pale mush darkens slightly. The steam rising from the pot now carries a new aroma, not just the simple smell of boiled cabbage, but a rich, savory scent that makes your mouth water. You have not added meat, or expensive spices, or rare ingredients. You have added a spoonful of fermented fish essence, and it has elevated the entire dish from mere subsistence to a genuinely delicious meal. You ladle the finished porridge into two simple earthenware bowls. You sit on the floor with your partner, the two of you eating in the dim light of a single flickering oil lamp. The porridge is no longer bland. It's savory, satisfying, and deeply flavorful. The garum provides the salt, but also a depth that makes the humble vegetables and grains taste rich and complex. This is the sauce's true purpose. It was not just a luxury item for the rich. It was a fundamental tool for making the monotonous diet of the majority of the population enjoyable. It was a source of essential nutrients, like amino acids and minerals. But more importantly, it was a source of pleasure. As you eat, you reflect on the strange nature of this food. It is born from decay, from the parts of the fish that most would throw away. Its production involves months of enduring a terrible smell. And yet, the final product is the key to culinary happiness. This paradox is at the heart of many of the world's most beloved fermented foods, from cheese to soy sauce. It is a testament to human ingenuity and our willingness to experiment, to push the boundaries of what is considered edible in the pursuit of flavor. You think about the different sauces you made. You imagine a wealthy merchant enjoying a piece of roasted pork glazed with your sweet garum, the honey and fish sauce creating a perfect, glistening crust. You imagine a soldier on a distant frontier, huddled over a campfire, stirring a dab of your elect paste into his bland ration of hardtack and water. The familiar, savory taste, a small comfort and a reminder of home. Your sauce connects you to all these different lives. For now, though, it is just for you. As you scrape the last of the delicious porridge from your bowl, you feel a sense of profound contentment. This is the reward. Not the coins you will earn, but this moment. Sharing a good meal, enjoying the fruits of your own labor, and knowing that you have the skill to create flavor and joy from the humblest of ingredients. You have survived another day, and thanks to your stinking, magical sauce, you have dined like a king, right here on the floor of your tiny, smoke-filled room. The echoes of the past, whispered for your rest, often carry the scent of a good meal. As you settle down for the night, the satisfying, savory taste of your dinner still lingering on your palate, your thoughts drift from your own small kitchen to the vast, sprawling empire that your fish sauce is a part of. The amphora of liquamen sitting in the corner of your room is more than just preserved food. It is a ticket to participate in the immense economic engine of Rome. Your humble, rooftop brewed condiment is a microcosm of a globalized trade network that connected the misty shores of Britain to the hot sands of Egypt. You reflect on the journey your sauce might take. Tomorrow, you will carry one of the smaller, specialized jugs